Hey there, everybody, and welcome to BMAD Code. My name is Brian, and today I want to talk about Cursor and a really hot tip to really elevate your working relationship with this awesome AI tool. We are going to jump into Cursor. And if you're not familiar with Cursor, Cursor is a fork of VS Code that offers a lot of features beyond what Copilot offers. While they are catching up, Cursor is still far ahead in the areas of agentic coding with their Composer feature. I'm going to show you how to make your agentic workflow even better by automatically generating rules so your AI can continue to evolve and learn from its own mistakes or rules that you give to it. So first of all, I want to show you this repo that I have created called the Cursor Auto Rules Agile Workflow. With this, you can check this out, save it locally, and there's a script here that will allow you to apply a key rule and some other items to any project or scaffold a new project. And with this, you will be able to automatically generate quality rules that will improve the way you work with your agent in Agent Composer mode. Let's jump into Cursor. And first, I'm going to give you a really quick demo. So here we are in Cursor, and if you're not familiar with Cursor, but you're familiar with VS Code, um, it should look very similar to you. Right now, I am in this template, so there's not a lot here. It's not language specific, but I do have a few things here that are related to Cursor. Specifically, I have this .cursor/rules file, and these are rules that the agent will use. Now, don't worry about the details of all these files. We're just going to be focusing mainly on one today, which is this 000 cursor rules.mdc file. And there is quite a bit of stuff in here, but let's not worry about the details of that for right now, because what I really want to do is just show you how, with having that rule in place, we can reliably create rules automatically. So I'm using SuperWhisper, which is a voice to text app. Let's create a TypeScript function in the source folder that will have the fizzbuzz function that takes in a number and returns the result. And we will just let the agent take care of this for us. So first it's going to check if the source file exists, and it's creating a file called fizzbuzz.ts in that folder. And here it's going to basically tell you if you pass in a number and it's a multiple of 3, it's going to return fizz. If it's 5, it will be buzz, or else it will just return the number. Let's just accept it, and let's now look at our code here. And so this is pretty good here. It did put a pretty nice function here on the function header. And then there's some code here. Now this is pretty easy code to understand, but maybe we want to have more documentation. And so in here, I want to create a rule that gives better convention for TypeScript files, specifically regarding documentation. So I'm just going to start a new composer. I don't need to, but I'm going to. Now you'll notice I will not open the cursor rules file. The agent will automatically choose that and use that as a method to create any new rules that I ask for. We need a TypeScript file commenting standard that follows best practices, so all code the agent generates with TypeScript will follow this consistently. And also optimization of comments for AI agent troubleshooting and understanding. So now I'm going to submit this. I did pick up the cursor rules file automatically, and it's following a convention that I will explain in a bit, but it's creating a file called 1001 TS comments. Normally for a rule, I would probably give it specific standards that I am interested in, but just for demo purposes, we can see that this came up with a rule. Previous rule generator rules I've found before failed to actually properly generate the file. This one works consistently every time and always creates the file. The key to that is ensuring that it properly fills in the front matter and the globs correctly as part of YAML front matter content. If you just try to have the composer create a rule and it does not set these properties properly, the file sometimes ends up in a buggy state where it will not appear in this folder correctly. But because the cursor rule generates rules in the proper format always, we had no issue with the file showing up here. It's going to use more comments in line to describe complex business logic, reference related components or dependencies, and it also has some AI optimization tips in here. So include key terms that aid in semantic search, and this will help when AI is reviewing code files in your project. Comments can actually help it understand and perform better. And with every rule, it is good to have both a good example and then an example of what not to do. In this case, I use example type equals invalid. This has been proven to also further facilitate rules being applied better in complex projects. Additionally, there's some critical rules here for it to remember. And now we're going to ask it to create the FizzBuzz again. And we'll see if it will automatically pick up the TypeScript commenting rules. So let's ask, first of all, let's just clear all this context so it does not remember what was done before, including how it wrote the FizzBuzz before. But now we should see an increase in, hopefully, the way it actually applies comments to the code that it writes. In the source folder, please create a TypeScript file with a function to perform FizzBuzz and return the results when called. All right, so now we do see it is fetching the TypeScript commenting standard. So it did automatically pick that up. So one thing with the cursor rule generator is it is very clear that when it creates other rules, it needs to optimize them so they are picked up automatically by the agent, and that is by putting proper language in the front matters description and globs pattern, especially the description though. Okay, so now you can see it still put the front matter here, but it actually included a little bit more based on our new rule. And additionally, you can see here, it put an inline comment to explain the logic a little bit clearer. So I want to point out a few other key things with this rule system we have here. And actually, if you go to the site of the template here on GitHub, there's a lot of really good information, and I highly recommend reading through all of this. It gives a lot of best practices of how to work with the rules, how they are generated, why they are generated in the format they're generated in, because the format and the way the files are written does matter both for size of the contextual overhead and also for the ability of the AI to pick up on key pieces. A lot of research went into this and a lot of trial and error on different file formats, whether to use Markdown or YAML or XML or JSON or various combinations thereof. So the state that this is in right now is following the best practices of multiple formats that work well with the LLM, especially with Claude Sonnet. Another thing you'll notice is all the rules do get generated with a prefix. And so there's a numbering prefix standard just to help them stay grouped together visually in the rules folder. So any core rules will be attached with a 0xx prefix. If they're tool or MCP related, they will be 1xx. If they're related to generic testing standards, 3xx. On and on and on. Workflows, templates, language-specific rules will go with 1000 XXX, and framework and libraries will be 2000 XXX. So this way, if I start with TypeScript, any TypeScript-specific rules will be 1, and then the second digit will keep all the TypeScript rules grouped together, and then XX. If I were to then later do Python or C#, those would still start with 1, but the second digit would be the next available digit for the new language added to the rule set. So if I had TypeScript and then added a Python rule, we would see 1000 and then 1100. And then as there were more TypeScript and Pythons, that last digit or second to last digit would increment. All right, and it looks like the light probably just went out on me. Another key feature, though, of this that I want to show you is private rules. So these rules are part of GitHub. They're not GitHub ignored. And this is great because you can share these rules specific to your project and your way of working with your team or anybody else contributing to the same project, also using cursor. But let's say you want to add a rule that probably should not be committed to source control, but you still want the agent to behave in a certain way. Of course, you could go to just cursor up here in your settings, and in your cursor settings, you can create a rule like this right here. Now, this will be applied just to this IDE and not actually used or updated in any of these files here, or stored in source control. It is only that specific instance of cursor. But another option you have is you can tell this with the rules agent here to create a private rule, and it will format the rule slightly differently. So as a demo, I'm going to ask the agent, I would like a private rule created that will force you to always respond to me like a pirate. All right, so this is checking the rule format, so it knows that we want to generate a rule, automatically chose that. And you'll notice the key differentiator here is it is creating the file with an underscore. So we'll let that finish. We'll look at it. Whether it's a good rule or a viable rule, who knows, although it is now talking to me like a pirate. Actually, a Klingon pirate, which is pretty bizarre. Maybe Worf is on the holodeck. But anyways, this rule is now underscored, and you can see it is grayed out, which means it will not go to source control, and that is because I have that file set up in the git ignore. Anything in the rules folder that starts with an underscore will be ignored. So following this convention, now anytime I request a personal rule, this will just be saved locally on my machine and not part of Git. Now, of course, there's other ways to also handle that. For example, like I said, I could go into cursor settings itself and tell the cursor to always talk to me like a pirate. Or I could use the notepads feature, which is another way. But notepads have its own limitations and are also used for different use cases, which I'll explain in a future video. Real nice thing about this template is you can use this to apply the basic rule generator to an existing project or to a net new project if you want to start fresh with a new project. So there is this apply rules.sh command, and you can run that. So let's just run apply rules. And instead of adding it to an existing project, because I don't have one ready right now that does not have um, not have the files for rule generation, we'll just create a new one called TS functions. Just a simple little project where we can play around with TypeScript functions like FizzBuzz that we just did. All right, so you can see this output here. It created a project directory. It copied over the core rules. It set up some notepad templates. So let's go to that project now. And we called it TS functions. And we will just go and open that now in cursor. So here we are in cursor. So this is a net new, brand new project. So you can see this created these base rules here. It did put out a document here, and I would say read this document if you want to learn about how to really tame working with the agent in composer mode on complex projects so it retains a memory and works in an agile incremental fashion, building out functionality for large projects, starting small and growing over time. Now, if you have an existing project already, whether you have rules or not, this will not modify anything that already exists, but it will add these additional rules here. Additionally, if you already have a README, it will not override it. But in the case of generating a new project, it just sets up a basic README here, sets up a basic git ignore if it doesn't already exist, basically telling it to ignore any private rules. And then the cursor ignore basically tells it to ignore the Xnotes folder. Again, I use Xnotes to be able to save generally documents or templates for documents that I want to put in notepads because notepads are not saved across projects or added to GitHub, and they are not saved in the IDE when you switch to different folders. So if you create a lot of notepads that you want to use for different things, I recommend the easiest way to retain those is to just create a git ignored folder, or excuse me, a cursor ignored folder called X notes or something else, and store your files in there. So now if I want to make a notepad for um, git push command, I would put this into a notepad, call it git push, and then I can just call the git push command, and it will automatically create a commit and push it to the remote in the fashion that I like it to do. So again, this was a walkthrough of cursor rules automatically being generated so you can have your agentic AI in Cursor improve over time by adding small granular rules that it will choose to automatically use. So I hope this was useful for everybody. Thank you again for joining me. My name is Brian, and we'll see you next time with another video where I will be showing you the Agile automatic workflow, which if you want to jump ahead and learn about it, you can come to this repo, which I am showing right here again. And you can read more about it in the README if you follow this link to the Agile workflow documentation. This will explain basically how that works. But I will have a video showing a detailed walkthrough of using this process very soon. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.